We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Hit the record button.
Gosh, that's swell.
It's a Lowe's Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, so for those that are tuning in, this is another episode of Italo's Blog Talk Radio. My name is Italo, and I have the pleasure of having a co-host. I used to co-host an open mic with her at the we used to be called House of Brews Mental Mondays. It was every Monday because Mondays were very mental back in the days, and now they're even there's not even a day anymore. It's like every day is mental, right?
Yes.
Crazy. And she writes that she's a mother, a child, a woman, a partner, awake, aware, able, giving a divine spark to speak truth when needed the most. She's for both the writer and the reader. She was born and raised in the Valley, and I am so glad that you're calling because I don't have many women calling my show for some reason. I'm like, what's up with my girls? So
yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to hear from you. I mean, I've been following your show for a while now. It's just really great, honestly. This piece really, it speaks to me because of everything that's going on in the world right now. But also, I haven't written an actual poem, in a couple of years. So I was really proud of this piece and how it came out.
Great. So let's dive right into it because I always like to start with a poem, and then because usually by the time I'm done, I'm like, oh, we didn't get to the poem, so let's just start with that, and then let me put my thinking cap on and my hearing cap on and stop talking. So the mic is yours. Go for it.
Awesome. Okay, well let me pull it up and we'll get started.
All right.
Okay. Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? So this piece, I call it Breathe. It was a piece that I wrote after being, I don't want to say inspired, but more compelled to write this piece after everything that had been going on. And the moment that hit most with me was the moment with George Floyd's death and George Floyd's murder. And everything that came after that. More so the people's reaction and the statement that they kept saying at the protest that I can't breathe. They kept saying George's last words over and over again. And I kept thinking about it psychologically, and I'm like, they're saying this in mass numbers that I can't breathe, when in reality I understand the intention behind it, but at the same time, they can, so they should. And I feel like if everyone stepped back and took a breath, they would be able to clearly figure out a solution. And this can go for anything and everything in life, not just protests and changing the world on a global scale, but it can go from, changing your morning routine up a little bit or changing something that's going on with your kids or your family, but just taking that moment to take a breath. There is a piece in the it's kind of an interactive piece, part of it, and you'll hear me sound to give kind of like instructions. Just try to follow along with it. Okay, it's not really over until the very last line will read, "Like it is your last." That will be the last line. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, let's go ahead and get started with it. A little backstory on the poem. But here it is. It's called Breathe. The physical manifestation of the id sits in the bunker beneath the giant plethora symbol of what was our democracy, while hiding and denying the reflection that is calling out in its own front lawn. with tears, angered by the frustrating denial of its own existence, screaming out to be heard, screaming out to be whole. Here is a true manifestation of our times. Here is what the mystics and the gurus and the shamans have all reached, that peak, that pivotal spiritual moment in our lives where they must reach beyond the ego, beyond the instant gratification. And ego itself is denial of truth. We must face it. We must talk through this. We must encounter this. Become more to become better. If we die, we die. We were never strong enough to survive. For those who do survive, for those who will survive, for those who can survive, have been surviving. Truth is yours. Hold your truth. Hold your light. Breathe, because you can breathe. Breathe, for those who can't. Breathe when it's all you can do. Breathe when there's nothing left to do. Breathe like it's your last. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. It's funny. It's funny how we forget to breathe.
Well, actually, I think I was actually driving to work that morning, and it just hit me. I took out my phone and my voice recorder, and I just started, saying it out, saying everything. After rereading it, it really hit me. I was like, whoa, that's really deep.
Yeah, it's deep. And actually, I wrote a piece that I'm not gonna do again because I did it before, and I don't want to do it again. And for those that are listening, I'm referring to the piece that I wrote about George Floyd, and in which I said, "I can breathe, I can breathe, I can breathe," and all this stuff. But basically, his last words, right? And then, as I said before, the piece was really hard for me to read, and it still is. I mean, if I, every time I hear it, I kind of get choked up. But and ever since this happened, this has been happening for a long time. I actually came across, I just came across a poem that I wrote in 2015. So that was 5 years ago. And it happened, I think, in April of 2015. I don't know if you recall when the cops murdered this homeless guy named Africa, or his nickname was Africa, and he was in I believe he was in a tent, and he was on Wall Street and Broadway, I think, or I forget the street names. I have it here in a poem, but Wall Street and Fifth, actually. And I recall writing this poem. It's called The Ticking Time Bomb, and I'll read it later. But the point is that there was a friend of mine who I consider her to be my friend at the time, and she's like, well, he was homeless. Who cares?
Oh my God.
And I realized at that point, I'm like, wow, I need to to find new friends because, right? And I did.
Good.
Long story short, I have way more valuable friends now than when I used to have before. Because I was afraid to speak up, and I was afraid to post something on Facebook, and I was afraid to post this on Instagram, and I don't know, they're gonna hate me if I say this. They're gonna, And nowadays I'm like, I can give a damn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel these days too. Like if you're bothered by somebody getting hurt, or you're not bothered by somebody getting hurt, by use of force, or just the sheer fact that people are being hurt and it doesn't bother you, bothers me. Like the fact that you're not perturbed by the idea of another human being being hurt, or not treated as though they are a human being, never made sense to me. It never made sense to me. Mm-hmm. And then seeing it now, I'm seeing now in the world a paradigm shift. The world is changing from all about me. The world is changing, or wanting to change. I see the world wanting to change from all about me to all about we, all about us, because we are one. That's kind of another piece that I wrote a long time ago called that, We Are One. That reminds me of that too as well.
So let me ask you, since you're mentioning your kid, and I remember your kid, he used to come to the open mics. He must be what, 9, 10 now, or?
Oh no, he'll be 7 in July.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll be 7.
He's doing good. How do you feel when he is going to school and he's going to grow up in the city of angels, right? How does that make you feel?
I feel okay with him growing up right now in the world that we're in, only because I'm very open with him. So I allow him to see things on the TV, or I'll show him something on the phone, and I'll take as much time as he needs, or as as much time as he needs to understand what's going on. And I always try to explain to him that, treating other people are wrong, and you have to treat everybody the same. And I'm so lucky enough that he doesn't see people, for any other way than how they treat him. If they treat him good and fine, then he's sure his best friend. But the moment that you say something wrong to him, or you put something, or something just doesn't feel right, he comes to me right away and he lets me know, like, this is what's going on and I don't like it. So I feel like it's just a matter of letting him make his own decisions, I guess you can say, but being there to guide him as much as any parent can.
Right. Because I've been seeing a lot of particularly black parents speaking to their children about, they call it the talk, and it's referring to how early is it to sit them down and tell them what they can expect when they get pulled over by the cops, if they were to be driving, but also if they were to be. I mean, we haven't seen people just walking in the street, playing with a gun, playing with a toy, talking on the phone, being in the park. You can be doing anything.
That's actually, it's funny bring that up, because it's actually a conversation that he and I had last night. Was that him and his cousin like to play, cops and robbers, and one of them will, get a stick and pretend that it's a gun. And my son mentioned, he's like, well, if I ever see a policeman, if a kid sees a policeman on the street, can he go up to him with a stick? I said, no. I said, if you see a policeman on the street, you don't point anything at him. And he's, well, why not? He said, he's not going to hurt me. I said, you don't know that. I was like, the police person could be having a bad day.
they could be scared. Something else could be setting them off. And if they're far away, all they see is a little boy raising their hand to them, and they're going to take it that you're trying to hurt them. And so you don't point anything at the police officer. You don't approach the police officer unless you absolutely need to. And in the end of that conversation, after it was going on for about 5 minutes, my son was like, "Okay, Mom, I get it. Can I just go to bed now?" He was just kind of like done with the whole conversation. So I let him fall asleep, but it got me thinking. I was like, my son can be, another Trayvon Martin if it does happen. He can just be going somewhere and they can harass him. Or like a young security guard recently, Gerardo, who was just killed recently because he ran away. He ran away from the cops, and they shot him in his back. That could have easily been my son at his job, saving up to go to work, or do any of that. So it is troubling at this time to have that conversation, to be a parent of a child of color, and to have that conversation. I can't imagine what it's like to be a black mother and have that conversation with her son when her son is way more of a target than mine will. And I'm lucky enough that, my son is of, Hispanic descent, but he's got very fair skin tone, But one day out in the summer, sun can change it, Son's just a Paw Patrol baby. He'll turn, brown toast if you need, if it comes down to it. But it's.
He could be also playing with his black friends. He could be playing with brown friends. He could be playing with, you know what I'm saying?
He could be playing with anybody. Yeah, and he could be playing with his girl cousins in the front, and all they ever do is just pick up a stick and go bang to the police officer, and I mean, they can just easily get just a scoop of a child of 7 years old pointing a stick at them, than a grown man trying to have a conversation with them and trying to explain to them what's going on before they tackle him to the ground. In my view, and this is my opinion, with little training that somebody is given in that sort of position of power, it can go all to one's head. I've had my own experiences where I walked out of it physically unharmed, emotionally and mentally damaged because of the things that the officer was saying to me at the time. And it made me feel completely, instead of making me feel like he was trying to help me, he made me feel like I was worthless. I was just going to be passed around. My life was going to mean nothing. And he saved my life by giving me a ticket that day. So having those kind of issues, go on is me. I don't ever want another mother or another person to have to go through that. Like, after walking out of that incident, I remember thinking, what is it about a shiny piece of metal on your chest that makes you feel so important, that makes you feel so entitled to look at somebody, to pull somebody over at a simple traffic stop, rip their car apart, take everything out of their car, tell them that you saved them from being raped at Linwood, at the Linwood jail, Linwood Women's Jail, and then give you a ticket and walk away. Like, what is it about a shiny piece of metal on your chest makes you feel that important or that entitled to destroy somebody's life in an instant? Yeah, it was just me. I pulled over his car, and he thrashed my car. He took everything out of my car and made me clean it up at the end. But that was just as much of emotional abuse as I don't think anybody should have ever suffered it at the hands of a cop, let alone physical abuse that they're going from 0 to 60 because you're not getting your ID fast enough or you're not listening and doing what they're saying. I'm sorry, officer. Maybe you should listen.
Right. I mean, and I was talking to another friend of mine. He used to work for the Buffalo Police Department, or he basically wasn't a police, but he was very close to being a police. And I was asking him, right? I was asking him, so what do you think about this? He says, well, you know what? Problem is that the police officers are not well trained to de-escalate the situation.
Mm-hmm.
They're always escalating
Yes.
the situation where there is no issue,
Exactly.
there is no problem, and they make it
and make it a problem.
bigger, and they make it a problem. So they should be trained in de-escalating the situation. And I was asking him about defunding the police and all this stuff, and he was like, well, although I don't agree with defunding the police, I do have an opinion about those who are criminals in the force, and they are found guilty, and they're, basically they're let go of the police force. He doesn't agree that they should have any pension. They should have no pay, no leave with pay, as they do.
Yeah. I don't
so there's
don't think
things within the department that they can do where they can allocate that money towards educating, training them, maybe community outreach that they don't do anymore. They never do community outreach that I know. So there's many things they can do. Of course, I don't want to give up the money.
No, of course not.
So,
who would? It's been basically an industry that's been thriving for the last, as long as anybody can remember, as long as they've been around. I don't want to put a number out there and be corrected online. But as long as they can, it's always been a business. To try to make money, the more bodies you put in jail, the more money you make on that. It's the Shawshank Redemption, basically. Every time I see something going on like that, overcrowding in prisons, the cops getting whatever, funds and stuff, I go back to thinking of the movie The Shawshank Redemption, when the warden gets, money to upgrade his jail, and he ends up spending it on new suits and nice cars and meals for himself, while the prisoners are stuck with broken shovels and picks and old clothes and stuff like that. So that's basically where I see us at right now, is in the middle of Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Day by day,
I'm
in there trying to build up my tunnel and trying to get up to the beach.
I mean, and then, speaking of breathing, because you were talking about breathing earlier, right? And it feels like and I'm talking about we as in the people, not only black people, but Hispanic people and any minority, except for the the white race or the whites, which according to Jane Elliott, there is no such thing as race. It's just a human race. However, let's just make it simple for people that no one. I love her too. I used to be scared of her, to be honest, but now I actually admire the woman.
She can be very intense when you first meet her, when you first start watching her and studying her. She can be very intense, especially because she's a white woman telling other white people, no, you can't have it your way. And I love hearing that because, no, you can't have it your way. It's not just your way anymore. It should have never been just your way. It should have always been for everyone, somehow.
Yeah.
I actually, I don't know if you saw her recent movie. No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry, you have to say something.
No, I was going to say, if you saw her recent interview that she had with Jada Pinkett Smith at the Red Table Talk. I love what she said. She said the same thing. She's like, there's only one race. There's no black, there's no white, there's no Asian, there's none of that. There are one race, the human race. And in reality, the first human, the only reason why there are lighter pigmentation than other people, why there are lighter people than there are darker people, is because those people traveled further away from the equator. So as they moved further away from the equator, generation by generation, got lighter and lighter, it got colder and colder. So she's like, in all reality, we're all black. She's like, the first mother, the first woman who gave birth was a black woman. It's on the equator line. Like, she was a dark-skinned woman, and everyone needs to accept that. Mm-hmm. And thinking on that, sitting and thinking on the message on them saying that, it got me to thinking as to why there is such an upset between black people or white people and people of color, any color. And I think it's deep down a deep psychological yearning for something that they lost, something that their people lost in travel, which is a deep integral part of themselves. It reminds me of the prodigal son in the same sense, where he left because he thought that there was better and more to see, so he traveled off, and in traveling off lost everything, lost all that made him who he was, all that he knew. And he sat and traveled and wandered for so long until he was ready to come home. Now, the rest of the story of the prodigal son doesn't really play into it, into my theory of it. But there is, I guess, in my view, a deep-rooted belonging for something that they lost, something that they had, and it was a big part of who they were. And along the lines, they got lost, and they don't remember. They can't remember what it was. Yeah, so that
might be true. Actually,
I mean, it's just a thought I had this morning on it, and I'm like, well, maybe that's why they're so mad. Maybe that's why they're really upset. Like I see them going on one after another. I actually had a lady come into my store, my workplace, the other day. And we have, Black Lives Matter posters. We're doing the Black Lives Matter fundraiser for the NAACP, the Bailout Project. We have Latinos for Black Lives, posters. We have vote posters. We have all kinds of signage in the windows showing that we show our support. I had a woman come in recently, and she looked at the sign, and she looked at my cashier, and she goes, "Is that the only sign that you have?" And he looked at the sign, and he looked at her, and he goes, "Well, I've got another one in the window, and that one there." And she goes, "This is ridiculous." And she turned and walked away. And I was like, "Oh, wow!" Like, I didn't think that would happen.
What did she say? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what she said. Oh. What did she say before?
She asked if that was the only sign that we had up, as the Black Lives Matter sign, and I have them all over my store. I've got Latinos for Black Lives Matter. We're doing a fundraiser. And so she came in. She's like, "Is that the only sign that you have?" And my cashier was like, "Yeah, that's what we have going on right now because of the protests and whatnot. We're showing our support." And she's just sighed. It's like, "Ugh, this is ridiculous," and kind of walked away. Didn't even bother ordering. I told them I wanted what he should have said, and this was just me being a smart ass. Sorry for the language. I said, "No, you should have told her, no, we're actually waiting for our LGBTQ Lives Matter to show up in big rainbow letters for Pride Month. Immigrant Kids Lives Matter, Muslim Lives Matter. We're waiting for all those signs to come in, and we're going to post them right up for you, too."
I would have said that if I were you. I would have been like, please.
Yeah, I would have been as professional about it as I possibly could, Yeah. But that would have been my response. Would have been like, "No, I have more Lives Matter signs coming up, like all of them do, But it bothered me when they're like, "Well, what about all lives matter? Everybody should matter." I'm like, "Well, yes, but not everyone's been subjugated to a daily
must be a Karen.
I can't deal with them. I'll call them out. A good friend of mine actually that I met when I was working here at Universal Studios for a while. And Grand, to tell you now, I know a Karen when I see a Karen. We would work at Universal Studios together. He actually moved back to Mississippi. And he's in rural Mississippi, like in the middle of the KKK territory, kind of Mississippi.
Okay.
But he himself is a very outgoing, very out gay man, and he's very proud of himself. And he's proud of the man that he's become. So I just got off the phone with him earlier today, and he said that he had the same kind of conversation with a woman at his job along the same lines. Like, how is it that you can allow your crew to talk bad about black people when you have black people on your staff? For you to ignore that is enabling it, and you're complicit in their actions. And the manager, the lady, was just like, "Oh, well, you know, it's just a talk. It's just talk, just trying to blow it off." And he called her out on it. As a white gay man, he called her out on it. And in reality, he's a minority too. If he falls into it, he falls into a minority too, being a white gay man living in rural Mississippi. You know, he is a minority down there as well. But I'm so proud of the fact that he's actually waking up and seeing the privilege that he's been born into as well, and checking other white people for the privilege that they sit in every day. And I think that's where it needs to start, you know. And I've heard it a lot on news and different videos that I watch online, celebrities and people that I follow, political leaders that I follow online. They all kind of say the same thing. Like, racism isn't a problem that the people of color created. It's a white person problem. It's a white people's problem. And once the white people kind of see that is the only issue that's there is the one that they've created, then they can see the truth for what it is and start dealing with it then, you know. But if they just continually, no, it's their problem, that's why they're this way, that's why they do this, that's why they do that, you're not helping the situation, you're just making it worse. Karen, please.
Right.
Like, check yourself. Check your privilege.
Shut up, Karen.
yeah, just sit down,
and,
please. What do you know?
And exactly. Go to the back of the line because everybody's, been waiting. And no, I mean, what I was trying to say is about earlier, it was the every minority and every minority, as you said. I hate the word minority, anyways.
It's because
we're the majority now. If we really count us all.
And I'm like, the minority, there's no real minority people anymore. Like, I feel like there's an equal balance of people all the way around. Like, you have almost an equal amount of black people to white people to Asian people to Mexicans to, to every break and subject race in between. Like, everyone's trying to balance out. They're all breeding within each other. We're fine. Like, get over yourself. There's no minorities anymore. Like, the majority of the human race. We're all in the same, living in the same world. And so my point is, we've been oppressed for so long. We've been complaining about we cannot breathe. We cannot be free fully. We cannot be, you know what I'm saying? So there's always been somebody over us. There's always been a hand over our shoulder, over our backs. So we felt the oppression all the time. So now that it's coming really full blown now, and we have taken so long of it, so much of it, we cannot continue taking it anymore. And that's where I think 2020 has changed the narrative. Where if you are going to be in the right side of history, or you're going to be in the wrong side of history, you have to pick a side. Like LL Cool J said it so well the other day. I'm like, we're not going to be. We're going to be. You have to pick a side. We cannot be polite anymore. We cannot be politically correct anymore. You have to pick a side. Which side of history do you want to be on? Do you want to stay in your side of history, or do you want to be on the right side of history? And that's where it comes down to. It's like we want to breathe. We can breathe now, and let's take a breath because that really helped me earlier when you did that in the beginning of the show. Good. I'm glad it did. It's really my goal with that piece is to get everyone to breathe. Like I feel the passion and the frustration and the determination to make change happen. I feel it with everybody. I'm right there with them, even though I'm not there on the street with them. I'm not in the halls of Congress. I'm not there. I am there with them. And I want everyone to remember to breathe. Even if you're sitting at home in this quarantine and you're struggling with everything that's going on, with work or lack of work, or, the insanity that you're feeling being trapped inside the house. You're dealing with your kids.
Right.
You're dealing with everything. You just need that second, those 3 minutes to just breathe. That's really all it is. And if I can get you to do that, I can get another reader to do that, I can get somebody else to do that, that's going to lead to another 10 people to breathe, and that's going to lead to another 50 people breathing. And then before I know it, my piece is helping 1 million people breathe. And that's, I guess, ultimately the goal of this piece, is just to get people to breathe again.
So let's do that. Let's start breathing.
Yeah, I guess too. It goes for people on both sides of the story, for the cops and the people that are being arrested, or the cops, the people that cops are dealing with. More so to the focus on that subject because that's where this piece originated from. But if the cops took a second to take a deep breath before they went to go, on a call, or before they interacted with somebody, and collected themselves before rushing out there and just gung-ho, ready to take them down, take on the bad guy, take a second.
Right.
Pull yourself together. Remember why you became a cop. If you became a cop because you needed that sense of authority to make yourself feel better, you needed that sense of power to establish yourself, maybe you should reevaluate why you became a cop. Why do you need
it's
so
nothing
much
wrong.
power?
There's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with admitting it's like, you know what, this is not my career. This is not for me. If you're being trained and you're in the middle of the training and you see you're not up for it, or you have a bias,
and that's okay.
Maybe it's okay. Exactly.
That's okay.
You're not a failure for not,
There's a generation of people still alive today where and granted, I'm not mad at them. They did the best that they could because that's all they knew. Much like the generation before them, they did the best they could because that's all they knew. I'm not mad at them. But I feel like there's a generation who sat in a career so long because they were told that that's what they were supposed to do. And that's what they needed to do. That's what must be done. You must become a banker because that's what the whole family's done, and that's what you're good at. You must become a banker. But I don't want to become a banker. I want to go cook. No. You must be a banker. Their entire life. Yeah. And so their entire life they sat in the bank miserable. An entire generation of people sitting in a place where they were miserable. Ultimately, that just transferred into more misery to others. And that just transferred on and on and on. The way I see it, it's a cycle that's just been going on for so long, and it needs to stop. The cycle needs to end. And I'll be glad if it ends with me. I don't mind being the one to put a stick in that wheel and a spoke and just let it fall apart. I know how to construct a new wheel.
Anyhow, Gabby, we actually are getting close to the end of the show. Believe it or not, it's already been.
Oh, wow, that's so fast.
However, I would like to invite your sister and whoever else, because I know your sister writes poetry as well. And
yes, she does.
I miss both of you because, and I haven't been in Silmar in a long time, so hopefully, we'll come out of this.
I don't know if you're aware of it, too. Actually, the House of Brews actually closed down a few years ago. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
I'm sorry, what happened?
The House of Brews, it actually closed down, sadly.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
but
you know, Tia Chuchas is still open, and
yeah, Tia Chuchas is awesome.
I mean,
I still love that.
Not right now, but
well, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we can probably do it online again. We can do a Mental Monday Zoom or something.
Oh,
I don't know. We'll come up with
that
something.
Would be cool. We'll do like a
why not?
Facebook Live thing or something.
Yeah, maybe like a once a month thing. But anyways, Gabby, it's been a pleasure having you on the air. Hopefully it's not the last time.
Of course
and not. Is there any shout outs you want to make? We have like 1 minute left.
Oh, I mean, I just want to shout out to the people in the world, like to everyone who's listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to hang out with us for a little bit. Shout out to the family for sure, my little boy, my sister's mom, and the family, my boyfriend, everyone who's been supporting me throughout all of this. And an even bigger shout out to those that are really making a change out in the world, that are out there with your signs and your posters and getting your petition signed and talking to your representatives and making actual change. Thank you. And for those of you making little changes at home, in your conversations you're having at home, with your family, with your friends, the new friends that you're making and the old friends you're letting go, thank you. Remember to stay positive and remember to breathe. We are all in this together. We are one. We can't get through this without each other.
Cool. All right. Well, that's our time. Once again, thank you. And we're going to take it out with You Didn't See This Coming.